So when we talk about species, how do we define a species? Like we know we can classify a species out, but what makes that a species? Well, there's this old guy called Ernst Mayr, and he was one of the earliest ecologists, but he said an organism or species is it's a group of individuals that essentially can breed and they produce fertile offspring. That's key, it's why it's underlined. And they don't usually breed with other groups. Easy way to tell, this is a donkey, this is a horse. Are a donkey and a horse similar? Well, yeah, look at their features. They're very physically similar to each other. Can they breed and have a baby? Yes, they can. They make a mule. That's where we get mules from. Can you take a male mule and a female mule and have a baby? Make another baby mule? You cannot. Why? Because male mules are sterile. Male mules are sterile. So as a species, two mules cannot produce another mule. The only way to get more mules is to take a horse and a donkey and let them breed, and then you'll make a mule. So what does that mean for the horse and the donkey? It means they're not the same species because they cannot produce fertile offspring because mules as a species are sterile. Well, the males are. What about a tiger and a lion? Well, they make a liger. It sounds weird. It sounds like something, that's what Napoleon Dynamite rode around on. But a liger is a real thing. But they suffer from major, major health problems. This individual was taken care of in a zoo for a long time, got great diet, great health care, and still died of heart conditions. Could they reproduce? No, they could not. A lot of them were sterile. So what does that mean for the tiger and the lion? Even though they're very similar, Panthera leo, Panthera tigris, they're not the same species because they can't produce fertile offspring. So that's a functional way of saying what a species is. Okay, so we're gonna change gears a little bit and go into the kind of the science of nature, and this is basically going into our scientific method. So a lot of people freak out when they hear scientific method. They go, oh my God, there's steps to memorize. I can't do this, blah, 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 blah. No, calm down. First of all, you've been doing this your entire life. You just didn't know it. Scientists just have a way of taking a process that goes through your head in a split second, and they break it down into components to study it, analyze it better. But you do the scientific method all the time. So what is the scientific method? It's just critical thinking, right? It's judging the quality of information before you accept it. Just judge the quality of it. You see those late night commercials that come on TV, and they make claims like lipozene, clinically proven to help you lose weight. Judge the quality of that statement before you accept it. Don't buy a lot of the stuff you see on late night commercials, okay? And good old Albert E. here said, all of science is nothing more than a refinement of everyday thinking. I can prove it to you, okay? Science just means knowledge. What is science? It's just a way of knowing things. Is it a good way of knowing things? It has worked better than any system that we as a civilization, as a species, have ever come up with. It has found more truths for us and helped us more than any other process that we have for discovering things and for learning things. So yeah, science it's just Latin. It means knowledge. Lots of times you'll, especially in mundane worlds, you hear hypothesis and theory. Lots of times you don't hear hypothesis, you hear theory, and that's because the common people use theory wrong. They are using it wrong. Somebody asks you, do you have any ideas about this? And you say, yeah, I've got a theory. No, you don't. You do not have a theory. You have a hypothesis. What's a hypothesis? It's an educated guess. You got a guess as to why that's right? Yes, I do. I have a guess. That means you have a hypothesis, not a theory. Theory is not a guess. A hypothesis has not yet been tested, right? Or at the very least, it doesn't have much testing to help support it. But it's an educated guess. A theory is not a guess. It is a well-accepted answer that has been tested many times and is well supported by evidence that they get from experiments. So when people say, like, the theory of gravity, well, they don't mean the educated guess of gravity. Gravity applies everywhere that we think it should. Right? On planets, anywhere there's atoms and molecules together, there's gravity. That's a well-accepted answer, and it's well-tested. Right? You ever wake up one day and gravity doesn't work? Well, then we'll go back and refine that theory. But until it stops working, we're good. But with a hypothesis, people say, oh, you know, I have this theory. No, you don't. You have a hypothesis. All right? And so we jump into the scientific method. So what is that? Basically, you have to see something happening. See it, smell it, taste it, hear it, or feel it. One of the five senses. Perceive it in some way. Instantly, your brain goes into, well, I wonder why that's happening. And then just as quickly, your mind goes, well, I bet this is why that's happening. And you think to yourself, well, maybe if this is true, if this is why it's happening, then if I do this to it, then something should happen. And so we test it. We go through it and we do an experiment on it. And if that test, the data from that test supports our prediction, hey, then we're good. We figured it out. But if not, if it doesn't support our prediction, we go back and we say, okay, well, that wasn't the right guess. That wasn't the right hypothesis. Move on to the next one. You do this every day. Let me give you an example. Observation number one, the TV remote won't work. You've all had this happen to you before. And you instantly come up with, well, what's wrong with it? Well, those are your hypotheses. Batteries, right? Batteries not working. Change the batteries. Maybe it's the wrong remote, right? Or maybe something's wrong with the TV. Maybe the TV's not plugged in. All right, those are all possible explanations. Those are all educated guesses, right? Those are hypotheses. And then you test them, right? You're lazy like me. You grab the remote, you bop it a few times, you roll the batteries around, maybe even put new batteries in it. You click the power button, and the TV still won't turn on, right? Well, that hypothesis that it was the batteries was not supported by the data from your experiment, the actual changing the batteries, right? So you move on to the next thing. Well, maybe I got the wrong remote, right? So you reach down. If you're like my house, you've got 2 or 3 different remotes for everything. And you make sure you got the right remote. Well, you look and, okay, well, it says a brand name on the remote. It's the brand name on the TV. I know this is the one. It's worked before. So it's not that I have the wrong remote. So you did an experiment. You check to see if it's the right remote. The data suggests that it is the right remote. So you move on to the next hypothesis, right? So we've eliminated 2. So what does it have to be? Well, maybe the TV's not plugged in. Maybe something's wrong with the TV. So you get it and you go check the TV. Oh, look. TV was unplugged. I don't know who unplugs the TV and walks away, but that was it, right? That's the scientific method. Remote won't work. Well, what's wrong with it? Well, it could be that it's the wrong battery. So let me roll the batteries around a little bit. And there I go. Rolling them around. Nope, it didn't work. We're going back to the next hypothesis. Well, maybe it's the wrong remote. Well, let's check it. I bet you if I look and see at the label brands that are on there, maybe they'll match up. Let's see. Yeah, they match up. So it's not that it's the wrong remote. It's the right remote. Well, maybe the TV's not plugged in. Well, let me go check the TV, and if it's unplugged, I'll plug it back in and see if it works. So I go and do that, and yep, look, TV came on. There you have it. Scientific method. Car won't start. Possible some hypotheses. Well, out of gas. Could be the alternator, right? Could be that the battery's dead. So you test them. Usually you go the cheapest one first, right? Go get some gas, put gas in it, make sure it's got gas. Okay, it's not the gas. It's got gas in it, still won't crank. Check the battery. Okay, take the battery out, take it in some place, have them test it. They say, nope, it's got a full charge. It's not your battery. Well, then what are you left with? Well, then it's got to be something mechanical, right? Got to be something else that's wrong. So you go through that process all the time. You're constantly going through the scientific method and using that day by day. We just break it down in science to its individual components to help us better understand what we're doing, because we want to be really methodical about it. So observation questions, hypothesis prediction, and test or experimentation, right? It's either going to support your prediction or it's going to not support your prediction, and you have to get another hypothesis, okay? But through that process, planes fly, boats don't sink. The internet works. How we use this process to go through and make sure that the data we have is the most accurate as possible. That's why this system works better than any other system we've come up with as a species. And that's why it's kind of important for you to do. It's just a refinement of everyday thought. Use it all the time. Things to watch out for, though, when you're doing science. This is where they're going to get you, because there is bad science out there. There's bad people trying to fool you. You got to watch out this thing called bias. All right, 70% of Americans are overweight. Well, they didn't ask me, so who did they ask? Did they ask you? Probably not, right? Well, then who did they ask? Where did they ask? What age groups did they ask? Which demographics did they ask? Well, if they're sitting outside of a Planet Fitness asking everybody that comes inside, comes in there or walks out of it, I guarantee you that 70% is probably going to be a lot lower, probably closer to 30 or 40% of Americans overweight. But because of their location, they're excluding a lot of people, so that's bias. They can't do that. Or they can, and it's going to skew their data, and you can call them out on it and say it's bad science, and then the report doesn't mean anything. But what if they sit outside of a McDonald's? Well, you're probably going to get a higher number than 70% of Americans overweight, right? Because what if they went to a college campus and asked, how many old people do you see on college campuses? Not that many, so they would be excluding a huge age demographic, right? Because most people that are younger are not overweight compared to older people. When you get older, you get a little more lethargic, start putting a little more body weight. So that's all stuff to watch out for. But another good thing to watch out is small sample sizes. So let's say I had a bag full of jelly beans, and you didn't know what color any of them were, but you reached in and you just pulled out one. Well, what could you tell me about all the jelly beans in the bag? Well, you'd have to say, well, they're all red, right? But that's a small sample. That's only one. That's not very accurate. So draw another one. Reach in, you grab a second one. Well, it's red as well. So what can you tell me about the jelly beans? Well, they're all red. Well, let's take another sample, because still, 2 is too small. Oh, the third time it's yellow. We could say, hey, they're at least red and yellow in the bag. But we draw another one, it's blue. Later on, we draw another one, it's white. And if we go and actually open up the bag and look and count at all of them, we'd see that there's a huge variation of all these different colors. We would not have those colors represented if we had a small sample. Generally, you need at least 20 or more to run any stats on sample sizes to see if the numbers are actually telling you stuff. So watch out for those small sample sizes. Okay, the thing about it, if they counted 5 Americans versus all 350 million Americans, well, the more they count, the more accurate they're going to be, right? The more closer they're going to be to the true number. But they can do a small portion of the population to represent the entire population. They just got to watch out for small sample size. They have to watch out for bias. Two of the big things to watch out for. Okay.